let's talk about one of history's great paradoxes. We're digging into the story of Alfred Nobel, a man whose name you probably know for two totally opposite reasons: devastating destruction and the world's most famous prize for peace.
So that's the big question, right? How does the guy who invents one of the most powerful explosives ever made end up as the face of the Nobel Peace Prize? It seems impossible. To figure it out, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning.
You see, our story doesn't actually start with dynamite. It starts with its parent chemical, a terrifyingly powerful and incredibly unstable liquid that was both a miracle and an absolute menace. Nitroglycerin had been around since 1847, but its power came with a terrible, terrible price. And for Alfred Nobel, that price became intensely personal. In 1864, a massive explosion at his family's factory in Sweden killed 5 people, and one of them was his own younger brother, Emil. That single horrible event lit a fire under him to tame this substance once and for all. So what was this stuff, really? Well, think of an oily liquid that was so volatile that a tiny jolt, a sudden movement, or even just a change in temperature could make it explode. It had a huge potential for building things, for mining, but it was just too dangerous to use. It was a ticking time bomb, and it desperately needed a solution. So, you've got this lethal, unpredictable liquid, right? And Nobel, still reeling from his brother's death, pours everything he has into finding a way to control it. And the solution he eventually finds, well, it's just brilliantly simple. The genius here is how simple it was. After tons of experiments, Nobel figured out that if he mixed the liquid nitroglycerin with a fine, absorbent powder called kieselguhr, basically a type of fossilized earth, it completely changed. It became this putty-like paste that had all the explosive power, but was stable. You could handle it, you could shape it, you could transport it safely. He had tamed the beast. He had invented dynamite. And right away, dynamite became this classic double-edged sword. On one hand, it was a miracle for construction. It let us blast tunnels through mountains, clear paths for railroads, build the modern world. But on the other hand, that same exact power made it a terrifying new weapon for war. It was a tool for progress and an instrument of destruction, all wrapped up in one. For years, Nobel built an absolute empire, making a fortune from both sides of that coin. He became one of the wealthiest men in the world. But then something happened, a really shocking event in 1888 that just flipped his entire world upside down. So get this, in 1888, Alfred's brother, Ludwig, passed away. But in a bizarre and frankly awful mix-up, a French newspaper confused the two brothers, and they printed an obituary for Alfred instead. Can you even imagine Alfred Nobel, alive and well, picks up a newspaper and reads his own death notice? And the headline was just brutal. Le marchand de la mort est mort. The merchant of death is dead. The article painted him as a monster who got rich by finding new ways to kill people faster than ever before. This was going to be his legacy. Being confronted with that horrifying version of his life story, spelled out in black and white for the whole world to see, it shook him to his absolute core. He decided, right then and there, that he would use his enormous fortune to rewrite that history. And he wasn't messing around. In his final will, Alfred Nobel dedicated a staggering 94% of his total wealth to his new project. Think about that. Not just some of his money, almost all of it. He was all in on changing how the world would remember him. And this was his grand plan for redemption. He established 5 prizes to be given every year to people who gave the greatest benefit on mankind in physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and, the big one, peace. The Nobel Peace Prize wasn't just another category. No, that was his personal, direct shot back at that merchant of death headline. Okay, so we know the story now. Nobel dedicated his fortune to peace. But to really grasp the scale of his paradox, you have to understand the sheer, world-altering power he was trying to counterbalance. We need to look at the chemistry he unleashed. All right, this chemical formula looks pretty complicated, I know.
But what it's describing is actually really simple. It means that when dynamite goes off, a tiny, tiny amount of dense liquid instantly turns into a massive, massive volume of superheated gas. It's that incredibly fast expansion that creates the explosive shockwave. That's the boom.
And when I say superheated, I am not kidding. The gases from a dynamite blast hit around 5,000 degrees Celsius. To put that into perspective for you, that is nearly as hot as the surface of the sun. Yeah, the sun.
The reaction is also mind-bogglingly fast. That shockwave I mentioned, it travels at about 7,000 meters per second. That's more than 20 times the speed of sound. Before you can even hear the sound of the explosion, the thing it was meant to destroy has already been completely shattered. That's where its incredible power comes from. And just to see what a total game changer this was, look at these speeds. Gunpowder, which was the standard before, exploded at around 500 meters per second. Dynamite was more than 15 times faster. It was a quantum leap. It's like going from a horse and buggy straight to a fighter jet. And as you can see, explosive science has only gotten more powerful since.
This quote really seems to capture who he was, doesn't it? A relentless inventor, always pushing for that one good idea. But his story leaves us with a huge question. Can an inventor ever really control what their creation becomes? Nobel spent the first half of his life creating a power to shatter mountains, and the second half building a legacy to try and mend the world. So which one was his truly good idea? It's one heck of a question to leave behind.